Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really exciting. We're looking at the entrepreneur, but not just as some person in a suit making deals. We're talking about the entrepreneur as a modern-day hero, someone who actively steps into the unknown and takes on the ultimate journey in today's unpredictable marketplace. So I want you to ask yourself, what does it actually take to look at absolute chaos, contradiction, and confusion and see pure opportunity? Well, it requires being an incredibly aggressive catalyst for change. Think about Olympic athletes totally smashing world records, or long-distance runners pushing through those agonizing final miles, or even Top Gun pilots just pushing the absolute envelope. That's the exact same kind of relentless drive we're talking about here. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll be decoding the entrepreneur. Then we'll look at disrupting the status quo. After that, we'll examine the entrepreneurial drive, break down the anatomy of a founder, and finally, wrap up with the 5 types of entrepreneurs. Let's kick things right off with Section 1, Decoding the Entrepreneur. Where does this whole concept of a business hero actually come from in the first place? Historically, the whole definition of an entrepreneur has gone through this really fascinating evolution. Right after the French Revolution, which, remember, was this huge shift marking the end of rigid feudalism, a renowned French economist named Jean-Baptiste Say coined the term from the word entreprenade. And back then, it basically just meant to undertake the risk of an enterprise, just putting something on the line. But society didn't stop there. Flash forward to the 1940s, as the world was rapidly industrializing, and Joseph Schumpeter redefined entrepreneurship as a force of creative destruction. I love that phrase, creative destruction. It means creating new combinations that intentionally make the old ways completely obsolete. Then, as we get into the late 20th century, the modern business guru Peter Drucker described the entrepreneur as someone who doesn't just react to change, but actively searches for it and completely exploits it as an opportunity. So over just a few centuries, we've moved from simply accepting risk to aggressively hunting down disruption. And that brings us perfectly to Section 2, Disrupting the Status Quo. Let's see how this modern entrepreneurial mindset completely clashes with traditional equilibrium-based business. So, classical capitalism, the kind defined by Adam Smith, is really all about optimization. The entire goal there is getting the absolute most out of the resources you already have, right? It's about establishing a safe, highly predictable equilibrium, just finding a nice, calm balance. But entrepreneurship, it operates on a totally different frequency. It sees change as completely normal, even healthy. It's not about just tweaking existing things to be slightly better. It promotes doing something entirely different. It is literally a manifestation of opposition that actively upsets and disorganizes the existing market to force progress. It's all about shaking things up. And by actively upsetting that status quo, entrepreneurs create this massive, undeniable ripple effect across the entire global economy. Think about it. When a bold new founder enters the arena, they practically force free markets to respond to changing preferences and brand new technology. Suddenly, those big, established legacy firms, they can't just coast anymore. They're forced to adapt and get way more efficient, or they literally risk dying out entirely. This constant pressure generates entirely new products, it spawns completely new industries, and it's exactly what fuels our modern technological gig economy today. And crucially, this massive economic impact doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Entrepreneurship flourishes most intensely in communities where resources are highly mobile, where successful folks actively reinvest their capital into the next generation, and where constant change is viewed as a positive force to be totally celebrated rather than feared. Okay, so if it's such an uphill, chaotic battle to disrupt the market, why on earth do people do it? Let's move into Section 3, the entrepreneurial drive, and uncover the real motivations behind this incredibly demanding journey. Howard H. Stevenson actually identified 4 core tenets that form the ultimate payoff for all these crazy risks. And it all starts with doing what you love, having the sheer power to produce things based entirely on your own passions. From there, you achieve that classic dream of being your own boss. You hold the ultimate freedom. There's no need to go ask a superior or navigate a maze of bureaucratic red tape before you make a decision. Furthermore, you get to work with people you actually like. You're handpicking a team based on mutual trust and a shared vision. And finally, you get to make your own schedule. You work whenever and however you are at your absolute most productive. This extreme, unparalleled autonomy is really the massive, life-changing payoff for braving all that chaos. Now that we've dug into the why, we really need to look at the who. Welcome to Section 4, Anatomy of a Founder. Let's look at the specific traits and weapons you actually need to survive this journey. I want you to take a second here and just self-reflect. Do you have what it takes? I mean, what exactly makes a human being capable of bearing this much risk and weight on their shoulders? Let's break down the anatomy of what makes a founder. So, the crucial point is that a successful founder is absolutely never defined by just one single trait. It's about balancing three distinct areas. First up, you've got an internal mindset. This means marrying calculated risk-taking with serious ambition, being adaptable, but also having the vital humility to just check your ego and ask for help when you're stuck. Second, they have to translate that mindset into decisive action. They're showing initiative way before anyone tells them what to do. They're proactive problem solvers, they are insanely hardworking, and they have the perseverance to push through the failures that are inevitably going to happen. And third, and this is a big one, none of that matters without exceptional people skills. A truly great founder has to be a persuasive communicator. They need to be a charismatic leader who can convince investors, employees, and customers to buy into a vision that honestly doesn't even fully exist yet. It is a wildly demanding, holistic balancing act.
Of course, not everyone out there is going to fit this exact mold in the exact same way, and that brings us to our final section, 5 types of entrepreneurs. Let's categorize how this hero archetype actually shows up in the real world.
Right, so not all entrepreneurs fit the purely innovative mold. There are actually 5 distinct archetypes navigating the business ecosystem out there. While the innovative entrepreneur is out there creating entirely new, highly economical ideas completely from scratch, you have the imitating entrepreneur, who watches the market closely and successfully adopts those proven ideas to scale them in brand new markets. Then you've got the Fabian entrepreneur. Now, these folks are highly skeptical, they're extremely cautious, and they literally only adopt changes when they are completely 100% satisfied that it's safe. On the far end of that spectrum is the drone entrepreneur. They are fiercely conservative, they will resist change even if it means taking a financial loss, and they essentially just live off the labor and momentum of others. And finally, there's the social entrepreneur. This is a really unique archetype who applies the exact same disruptive principles, but not just for profit. They're doing it to drive profound social transformation in huge fields like education, health, human rights, and the environment. But, regardless of the type, everything we've talked about today regarding disrupting markets and hunting for opportunities really boils down to this perfectly stated quote from Nolan Bushnell. A true entrepreneur is a doer, not a dreamer. And that really hits the nail on the head. Entrepreneurship is absolutely not about having a brilliant idea while you just sit safely on the sidelines. It ultimately comes down to taking decisive action, getting your hands dirty, executing those ideas in the messy, real world, and bravely stepping right into the unknown. Which brings us to our final question for you today. So, which one are you? I really want to leave you with this challenge. Take a hard look at your own potential, think back to those traits we just covered, and ask yourself if you are finally ready to take that very first step on your own entrepreneurial journey. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep exploring.